All right, this is called If I Ran the Zoo by Dr. Seuss. It's a pretty good zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, and the fellow who runs it seems proud of it too. But if I ran the zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, I'd make a few changes. That's just what I'd do. The lions and tigers, that kind of stuff, they have up here now are not quite good enough. You see things like these in just any old zoo. They're awfully old-fashioned. I want something new.
What is that?
So, I'd open up each cage. I'd unlock every pen. Let the animals go and start over again. And somehow or other, I think I could find some beasts of much more unusual kind. A 4-footed lion's not much of a beast. And one in my zoo will have 10 feet, at least. 5 legs on the left and 5 more on the right. Then people will stare and they'll say, what a sight. This zookeeper knew Keeper Gerald quite keen. That's the gold darnest lion I have ever seen. How many legs does that lion have?
5, 6.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6.
And on the back, it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people talk. My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people gawk at the strangest odd creatures that ever did walk. I'll get lost. I'll get for my zoo a new sort of hen who roosts in another hen's top knot, and then another one roosts in the top knot of his, and another one in his, and another in his, and so forth and upward and onward, gee whiz. You see that? Tower of hens. But that's just a start. I'll do better than that. They'll see me next day in my zookeeper's hat, coming into my zoo with an elephant cat. They'll be so surprised they'll all swallow their gum. They'll ask when they see my strange animals come, where do you suppose he gets things like that from? His animals all have such very odd faces. I'll bet he must hunt them in rather odd places. And that's what I'll do, said young Gerald McGrew. If you want to catch beasts you don't see every day, you have to go places that are out of the way. You have to go places no others can get to. You have to get cold and you have to get wet too. Up past the North Pole where the frozen winds squeal, I'll go and I'll hunt my Skeagle. I'll go and I'll hunt in my Skeagle-mobile and bring back a family of what do you know? And that's how my new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will grow. I'll hunt in the mountains of Zomba Matant with helpers who wear their eyes with a slant and capture a fine fluffy bird called the bustard who only eats custard with sauce made of mustard, and also a very fine beast called the flustered who only eats mustard with sauce made of custard. I'll catch 'em in caves and I'll catch 'em in brooks. I'll catch 'em in crannies and I'll catch 'em in nooks that you don't read about in geography books. I'll catch 'em in countries that no one can spell, like the country of Mata, Fapata, Fapel. In a country like that, if a hunter is clever, he'll hunt 'em some beasts. Shh. All right. All right, let's listen now, okay? Shh. All right, pick up. I'll catch 'em in countries that no one can spell, like the country of Mata, Fapata, Fapel. In a country like that, if a hunter is clever, he'll hunt up some beasts that you never saw, never. I'll load up 5 boats with a family of jotes, whose feet are like cows, but wear squirrel skin coats, and sit down like dogs, but have voices like goats, expecting they can't sing the very high notes. And then I'll go down to the wilds of Nantucket and capture a family of lunks in a bucket. Then people will say, now I like that boy heaps. His new zoo, McGrew Zoo, is growing by leaps. He captures them wild and he captures them meek. He captures them slim and he captures them sleek. What do you suppose he will capture next week? I'll capture one tiny, I'll capture one cute, and I'll capture a deer that no hunter would shoot. A deer that's so nice he could sleep in your bed if it weren't for all those horns that he has on his head. He's got a lot of horns on his head, huh?
Yeah.
And speaking of horns that are just a bit queer, I'll bring back a family, an odd family of deer. A father, a mother, two sisters, a brother, whose horns are connected from one to the other, whose horns are so mixed that they can't tell them apart, can't tell where they end, can't tell where they start. Each deer's mighty puzzled, he's never yet found if his horns are hers or the other way round. I'll capture them fat and I'll capture them scrawny. I'll capture a scragglefoot mulligatawny, a high-stepping animal fast as the wind from the blistering sands of the desert of Zend. This beast is the beast that the brave chieftains ride, but when they want to go fast to find some place to hide. A mulligatawny is fine for my zoo, and so as a chieftain, I'll bring one back too. In the far western part of southeast North Dakota lives a very fine animal called the Iota. But I'll capture one who is even much finer in the northeastern west part of South Carolina.
This one's creepy.
All right. When people see him, they will say, now by thunder, this new zoo, McGrew Zoo, is really a wonder. I know he's got bright blue hair in a dark room.
Yeah, he's creepy.
Most beasts are quite friendly, but still in some lands, some beasts are too dangerous to catch with bare hands. For those that are ugly and vicious and mean, I'll build a bad animal catching machine. It's rather expensive to build such a kit, but with it a hunter can never get bit. A zoo should have bugs, so I'll capture a squirrel whose legs are snarled up in a terrible snarl. And then I'll go out and I'll capture some chugs, some keen shooter, mean shooter, bean shooter bugs. And I'll go to the African island of Yurka and bring back a tizzle-topped tufted mazurka, a kind of canary with quite a tall throat. His neck is so long if he swallows an oat. For breakfast the first day of April, they say, it has to go down such a very long way that it doesn't get to his stomach until the 15th of May. Wow, it takes a month for him to swallow food. Do you imagine? I'll bag a big bug who is very surprising, a feller who has a propeller for rising and zooming around making cross-country hops from Texas to Boston with only 2 stops. Now that sort of thing for a bug is just tops. When I've caught him, then the next thing you know, I'll go and I'll capture a wild tic-tac-toe. With X's that win and the zeros that lose, he'll look mighty good in the zoo of McGrew's. I'll bring back a gusset, a gherkin, a gasket, and also a gooch from the wilds of Nantasket. And 8 Persian princes will carry the basket, but what their names are, I don't know, so don't ask it. In a cave in Khartoum lives a beast called the Natch that no other hunter's been able to catch. He's hidden for years in his cave with a pout, and no one's been able to make him come out. But I'll coax him out with a wonderful meal that's cooked by my cooks in my cooker mobile. They'll fix up a dish that is just to his taste, 3 chicken croquettes made of library paste, then sprinkled with peanut shucks, pickled and spiced, then baked at 600 degrees and then iced. It's mighty hard cooking to cook up such beasts, but that's how the new zoo, McGrew Zoo, gets beasts. You want to see these animals again?
Yeah, I couldn't see there.
Yep, that's those princes carrying the animals in a basket. And then this is them cooking a fine feast and walking on a tightrope to lure this beast out.
What's that beast right there?
That's the tic-tac-toe.
It's a tic-tac-toe monster.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say monster, I'll say zoo.
All right, and I'll go to the faraway mountains of Topsk, near the river of Nopsk, and I'll bring back an Obsk, a sort of kind of thingamabobsk, who only eats rhubarb and corn on the cobsk. Then people will flock to my zoo in a mobsk. McGrew, they will say, what a wonderful jobsk. He hunts with such vim and he hunts with such vigor. His new McGrew zoo. His new zoo, McGrew zoo, gets bigger and bigger. And speaking of birds, there's the Russian Palusky, whose head ski is red ski and belly is blue ski. I'll get one of them for my zooski, McGrewski. Then the whole town will gasp. Why, this boy never sleeps. No keeper before ever kept what he keeps. There's no telling what that young fellow will do. And then just to show them, I'll sail to Catrue and bring back an Kutch, a Preep, a Nurgle, and a Prue, a nerd, and a seersucker too.
Look at Lorelai.
Please get down, please.
I'm getting
I'll hunt in the jungles of Hippo Nohungus and bring back a flock of wild Bebo Nobungus. The Bebo Nobungus from Hippo Nohungus are better than those from down in Dippo Nodungus, and smarter than those in Nippo Nonungus. That's why I'll catch 'em in Hippo Nohungus, instead of those others in Nungus and Dungus. And people will say, when they see these bips bounding, this zookeeper, new keeper's simply astounding. He travels so far that you'd think he would drop. When do you suppose this young fellow will stop? Stop? Well, I should, but I won't stop until I've captured the Phizza-Mawizza-Madill, the world's biggest bird from the island of Gwark, who only eats pine trees and spits them out bark. And boy, when I get him back home in my park, the whole world will say young McGrew's made his mark. He's built a zoo better than Noah's whole ark. These wonderful, marvelous beasts that he chooses have made him the greatest of all McGrewses. And wow, they'll all cheer. What this zoo must be worth. It's all the gold darnest zoo on the face of the earth. See all these crazy people rushing in to see all these wild animals he's got. He's got lots of crazy animals.
Why does he need a lot of animals?
Because he's building a zoo. The best zoo around. Yes, that's what I'd do, said young Gerald McGrew, if I'd make a few changes, if I ran the zoo. The end.